Here's a pleasant surprise for you, Bill. Well, mate, this is the tape you wanted about you and Ron Pickering, our old pal.
The Discus event, which dates back to early Greek origins, and in place of Myron's Discobolus, we've got Big Bill Tancred here, coming in at 6'4", 17 stone 10. The men have got bigger, the implement a little more sophisticated. It's an event which, if we were training animals, we'd use the orangutan with the big long arm. Rather than the gorilla, we'd save him for the shot put. But in Bill Tancred here, not only is he better looking, but he's an Olympian. He's the British record holder at 194 feet, 3½, and a man of considerable international reputation. He'll be joined later in the program when we use our 3 youngsters for the training practices for discus throwing. Our coach for today, well, we're drawing again on the expertise and experience of John Le Mesurier, the senior national track and field coach under the British Amateur Athletic Board. John, perhaps you'll take us into the circle and show us the confines of the event.
Of course. Well, the circle is 2.5 meters in diameter. That's 8 foot 2.5 inches. As you can see, it's made of concrete. The athlete has to throw from within this circle. He's not allowed to put his foot outside or on the rim of the circle. He has to throw the discus into this sector, which is 45 degrees marked on the ground. The discus has to land within that. And the discus that he throws is, this is a man's discus, weighs 4 pounds, 6 ounces, and this is a lady's discus, which weighs 2 pounds, 3 ounces.
And normally, John, we'd have a net around here for safety.
Oh, yes, of course. There should be a safety net, but
we've taken it down for the purpose of the camera.
That's exactly
Fine,
right.
so that we can see the event very clearly. So let's get on with the action.
Sure.
Okay, Bill, let's see some action. And perhaps, John, you could break it down into its principal parts.
Yes, of course. Well, first of all, the stance and the preliminary swings at the back of the circle. Then he moves from that into the turn and across into the throwing position. Fundamental throwing position in the front half of the circle.
Well, we'll get him to take another one, and this time we'll look at it from the back.
Feet well apart, preliminary swings, turning into the turn and into the throwing position in the front half of the circle.
Well, would you like to go in and take him through those various parts, John?
Yes, of course. We first of all must look at the way the discus is held, the grip, with the fingers just overlapping the end of the discus and the thumb resting on the top. So it doesn't actually grasp the discus, it's just forcing itself against the ends of the pads at the ends of the fingers. Now from there we go into the preliminary swings, a stance with feet fairly wide apart, and start swinging, Bill. Do several preliminary swings, if you would, just to show how the weight goes evenly from one foot to the other as he prepares for the throw. Now on the last swing, the left arm is across the chest here, the head is up, and the arm, the throwing arm, is way back behind the line of the shoulders. This is very important in discus throwing. You're getting a wind-up at the back of the circle. Just rest on that a minute. Now, from there, we're going to see the movement into the turn, and he moves in over the left foot. So if I hold you back here, Bill, and you get your weight now over the left foot and turn your left foot in the direction in which you're going to run. Remember, he's going to run across this circle, trailing the discus behind him. Okay, now into the throwing position. Well, we've gone across a bit far, so that's better. We have the fundamental throwing position now, which is so important to the thrower. He's got to land with a weight back over the right leg, roughly in the middle of the circle, the left foot out to the front, and the left arm wrapped across the chest. So that's throwing position. Now from there, we're going to show you how the discus leaves the hand. In fact, it spins out of the fingers here, spins out of the fingers in a clockwise direction, so that it comes out of the front of the hand. Show it again, Bill. Comes out of the hand here, and this spinning action here gives it stability in flight.
So let's see a series of throws from 3 quite different positions. At normal speed, and in slow motion. Okay, Bill?
Now, the first important thing to watch here is the way the weight moves over the left foot, how he shifts his body weight over the left foot as he goes into the turn. Watch it again. He'll take up his stance in the back of the circle, and his weight will move onto the left foot, and he'll turn his left foot in the direction in which he's going to go. There.
That provides him the base to drive from, John.
Exactly.
John, let's take the opportunity of slowing one of those throws right down so that you can analyze it for us.
Yes. Well, he adopts a position at the back of the circle with the feet well apart, and he needs this because discus throwing requires balance. You have to be balanced all the way if you're going to throw it a long way. So here's the position with the feet well apart and the knees slightly flexed. The back is straight, the head is up, and he swings the discus back behind the line of the shoulders. He now turns in over the left foot. From this bandy position, he runs across the circle, landing roughly in the middle of the circle with the trunk down, the shoulders back towards us. You see, the hips have run ahead of the shoulders, so he has this wound-up position in the front half of the circle, and from there he drives the right leg forward, driving the hips into the throw, and the release out to the right at a tangent to the circle around which he's turning.
Now we can see those points from the side-on position. Okay, Bill.
Yes, we'll watch the left leg again as he goes into the turn and see how this drives him across the circle and into the throw. You see, if you don't get your weight over the left leg at the start, then you won't get across the circle during the throw itself. So we'll watch again the left leg as he goes into the turn at the back of the circle. Here it is, he's turning, driving into the throw. And a very good throw at that.
John, if we slow that one down, we should see it all from the side.
Yes, indeed. In fact, the point I made previously about balance, we shall see here as well, because not only have you to be on balance from the back, but you've got to be on balance right the way through. And this is why, as he goes in over the left leg, he has to have his weight slightly ahead of this left leg so that he can drive across the circle. And this is why we refer to this type of throw as a running rotation, because you can see that he drives off the left foot, the right knee is picked up as he runs to the front of the circle and lands in a very strong throwing position. Now, this throwing position is terribly important. The right foot about the middle of the circle and the left foot up in the front, so that he can drive the right-hand side of the body against the resistance of the left. And the right leg is terribly important here, driving through, driving the hips to the front and producing a rotation in the body at delivery, which finishes up with a reverse. The feet reverse at the end in order to save him from fouling the front of the circle.
Well, we've seen them from the side and we've seen them from the rear. Now, a unique opportunity to see them from this overhead position.
Well, we're going to watch here the wind-up of the athlete in the back of the circle and to see how he unwinds in the front. Wind up, unwind.
And we should be seeing a pattern of gradual acceleration, shouldn't we?
Exactly. This is why, at the back of the circle, the athlete must wind up rather like a coiled spring, and he lands in the front of the circle, he unwinds, legs first, and we shall see from overhead how the shoulders and the arm take their place in this one unwinding action.
It's a bit of a whiplash.
Yes. There you go. It's winding up and unwind. This overhead shot is really most interesting from the coach's point of view and from the athletes. We very seldom get a chance of seeing a thrower overhead, with a camera overhead in slow motion. Now, I mentioned the importance of wind-up, and we can see this beautifully from overhead, how the arm goes back behind the line of the shoulders as he turns into the throw and runs across the circle into the throwing position. When he lands in the throwing position, he is really wound up with the arm back behind the line of the shoulders behind the line of the hips. So the coiled spring, which I referred to before, unwinds and he zips the discus out, slinging it out into space. The white line down the middle of the circle has shown us that he moves in a straight line, and this is fundamental to good discus throwing.
Well, our youngsters have been watching this with the greatest possible interest, and now they're dying to have a go for themselves. And the coach is going to watch them, scrutinize their efforts. The first of these is young Mark, who's only 15, and an inexperienced or novice thrower who hasn't yet learnt the turn.
Well, this is a standing throw, as Ron has told you. He's going back over his right leg, and it's not a bad throw, not bad, Mark, but I would like to see you use more of your right leg. In other words, you're tending to bend your knees like that, rather than to take the weight back over your right leg. Would you like to get another discus and see if you can get back more over your right leg and make your right leg do more of the work? Well done, well done, that was better. I'd like you, if you put your right foot there, to feel the position of having the weight here, okay? With this left arm wrapped and this arm back behind the shoulder. Now, I want you to drive with that right leg, and when I say drive, I mean turn the heel out and straighten the leg there, okay? Try that. No, that's rather weak. I want it to be fast. Good. Now that drives the hips to the front, you see? Now let's see if you can get into that position and zip out of it, using the leg. Okay, let's have a discus and see if you can just relax. Don't think about throwing too hard with the arm. Try and use the right leg to make the discus go. Back, good, nice. Leg, well done. That was, did you feel the difference in that? And if you'd done it really well, instead of finishing with your feet here, you would have driven yourself forward against the circle, so that your hips would have come forward. Means that the right leg didn't do quite enough work. So we'll have one more. Back, nice and easy. Right leg, well done. Now you finished forward that time, very good indeed. Well done, Mark.
Now young Stephen, who's only just turned 16, but he's a much more experienced thrower. He uses a 1.5 kilogram discus, and he's already thrown this over 144 feet.
I'm going to watch Steve from the back because I want to see what happens at the beginning of the throw. What happens at the beginning of the throw determines what happens at the end of the throw, very largely. And that was a bit quick, so we'll see it again. Here he goes. He's got to get the weight over the left leg as he goes into the turn in order to be on balance in the front of the circle. Now, I'm fairly satisfied that he was, but I'll stress the point with you, Steve, that unless you get your weight well over the left leg as you go into the turn at this end, and that you flex your legs, that you sit down in a bandy position, you haven't any chance of being on balance in the front of the circle and able to execute, you know, a really powerful throw. But I thought that was pretty good. Never forget that, because I've had to stress this with international Olympic throwers. They're always having to be told, grind your weight in over that left foot. It's as if you were screwing a screw into the ground. You see, you're turning on the ball of the foot, you're screwing it into the ground. There, as you go in. Let's have another one from this same angle. I'm going to watch you from the back. Here he goes. Now screw it in as you go over that left leg. In and throw. Quite good, quite good. I'm going to watch from the side next time, Steve, because as I've pointed out to Mark, it's what happens here in the front of the circle which matters. I think you're reasonably good there, but I want to check up when you land in this position. I want to see if you are in that position, because we're adding a bit of speed to the throw. So it's a turn, and then this throwing position here. Yes, over. Aha. Well, now that was a foul throw, and I had a clue from the back that in fact you were not driving your right-hand side of the body against a resisting left side. You were tending to whip this left leg away and doing that. Now, you can't apply force on the discus unless you have a foot on the ground. So I want you to really work your right leg up against the resistance of the left. Have one more. So you've got to be well back over your right leg when you land in the middle of the circle. Easy, relax. Sit into it. Sit. Back over it. Yes, well done. That was very much better. It still came away. I'm not going to say that it was perfect, but it was better. Could you feel yourself working over this left leg? That's the thing I think you have to work on. You have to be here in the middle of the circle, way back over your right leg. Just try that position, will you? That's it. And now this is the resistance. This leg here is the resistance over which you work.
Well, now for Ray, who's just turned 17 and uses a 1.75 kilogram discus. He too is pretty experienced, as he's about to show you now.
Well, I'm going to watch Ray again as we did before with Steve. Difficult to fault an athlete and on his very first throw, so we'll give him a chance of another throw before we start saying anything at all about it. Easy, relaxed swings, that's nice. Over the left foot. A very wild right leg which swings at the start. When you go into your turn, you swing your right leg wildly out here. It might be better to keep it more compact as you go into the turn. It's very wild. It's like a high jumper. Too wild. So try and play it down a little bit. I don't think we're going to alter that in one afternoon, and in fact, it may well be that you will be able to get balance with it going like that. The other point which I notice is that your arm drops. Now, in discus throwing, you want the arm up level with the shoulders, or between the shoulders and the hips. You tend to allow it to drop into your pocket, and that's why you're scooping it up into the air. Today, we have a lovely headwind which helps discus throwers because the discus, if thrown properly, floats on these. So try and keep the hand up and to deliver it at a lower angle into the wind. So it's a second point. Forget the first point which I made to you about the leg. Keep that and think about the arm. Keep it up. Keep that right arm up all the way round and lift. No, you missed it. Actually, it was a very good attempt to keep the arm up, Ray. So we'll have another one. But you bullied it. You tried to throw it out of sight. Build up your acceleration gradually. Easy at the back of the circle, and then keep the arm up and try and float it out into this wind. Nice and controlled. Up, up. That's the best so far. Easily the best so far. Well done.
Well, now from aspiration to inspiration, from our young hopefuls here to some of the greatest throwers in the world in action in that big competition. We're going to take some shots of the European Championships at Helsinki and the Olympic Championships in 1968, which brings in that all-time favorite, the man with the golden arm, Al Oetter. Now a look at Ludwig Danik of Czechoslovakia. His third round throw, he lies second at the moment to Fejér of Hungary. Weather not good, but watch the long pull of Danik. Way out beyond the 196-foot mark, and that is the one that's going to win the European Championship for him. Pivots on that left foot, the running rotation, the long haul of the arm, and lifts it and lets it ride on the wind, and the wind tails it off, but still it goes on and on, beyond all the other marks. 209 feet 8, and the European Championship goes to Danik of Czechoslovakia. the broad back and mighty right arm of the greatest competitive discus thrower the world has ever seen. Alerta of America, coming up to take his 4th Olympic gold medal. Again, with the conditions not quite right. Most of the great competitors failing about him. Erta chooses this moment to produce a season and a lifetime's best. He bangs it away to 212 feet 6 and clinches his 4th successive gold. Success like that comes from getting everything right. Not clutching, pivoting, running well, and getting in the supreme throwing position there. As the left leg comes down, the arm is way back. From there, it can swing into a tremendously powerful release there. And that is why Erta is the greatest thrower of all time.
John, we've seen some of the greatest throwers in the world in action, and we've seen Bill pulling out some great throws here today. And I emphasized earlier that most of these people are very big with long arm, but there are exceptions to this rule, surely.
Oh, yes, and I'm very glad there are, because I wouldn't like people to get the idea that you couldn't enjoy throwing and do pretty well unless you were this huge. But I suppose if you go back to the originator of this type of throwing, Fortune Gordian, an American who held the world record at over 190 feet for quite a long time, he was relatively small. He was about 14 stone and really was an all-round explosive athlete. And this is what I'd rather see.
And 14 stone is relatively small when we're talking about these big men.
Yes.
Mind you, Bill is a pretty explosive and dynamic all-round athlete, isn't he? Some of these activities might serve to illustrate it. Bill, let's have a look at some of your warm-up sequences.
Well, this exercise, which he's doing, is really to develop the interplay between hips and shoulders, which is so important in discus throwing. We've seen it from the various shots, and he's got to be rangy in the shoulder girdle and in the spine, and that's why he does these sort of exercises to improve that aspect.
I think it's worth mentioning, John, that Bill's thrown that javelin over 200 feet, and he's put the 16-pound shot well over 60 feet.
Yes, he has, and he's a good all-round athlete. I prefer an all-round athlete to a giant, quite honestly.
And not an unintelligent one. I mean, it might be worth pointing out that here he is, Bill, doing a Master of Science degree in human biology, so he knows exactly what he's doing when he throws this, the 12-pound shot going out to 70 feet, and heaves this 16-pound ball about with consummate ease.
Indeed. He's a great all-rounder, and I've seen him jumping and sprinting and hurdling and, you know, measuring it up with the other track athletes on occasions.
Well, Bill, let's just take time out to have a natter for a moment.
Come in.
Because I think a lot of people would like to know what sort of training you do in the in-season, the throwing season, when the sun's out, but also in the off-season.
Well, during the winter, I do a lot of heavy lifting, concentrating mostly on the legs, half squats.
What sort of poundage do you handle in half squats, which is sitting down till your thighs are parallel to the ground, isn't it?
Yes, about 600 pounds.
Well, I think that's going to frighten them to death. What about some of your other activities?
I include a lot of athletic type events. When I say athletic, I mean related to the actual throwing events.
Sure.
For example, sort of the ones that we're just doing now, but I do them with dumbbells. And I like to be an athlete first.
Well, you always have been. Being a physical educationist, do you include gymnastics in your work and sprinting, that sort of stuff?
Definitely, yes. I sprint nearly every day after a session, even after weights. Because I like to sort of keep quite sort of nimble.
Well, it's certainly showing in your throwing. Thanks a lot, Bill.
Thank you very much, Ron. Thank you.
Well, Bill just about typifies what discus throwing is all about. Tall, fast and rangy, but an all-round athlete in this running rotational event. One of the classics in the field events of track and field. And we have another classic for you in the next program. That's javelin throwing. See you then.